in interesting times, don't we? As upsetting, as painful, as scary, as frustrating as the current days can be, with wild, crazy things happening in the political world around us just about every day, it seems. The times, they are interesting. Yes, they are indeed. The phrase, "may you live in interesting times," is often referred to as an ancient Chinese curse, but there is no known Chinese source for it. Instead, it appears to have originated in English, like as an attribution or a misunderstanding. The earliest known use of the phrase in English is traced to 1936 in a speech by the British politician Sir Austen Chamberlain, who mentioned hearing it as an ancient Chinese curse. However, no evidence exists that this phrase in Chinese ever existed. Some scholars speculate that it may have been inspired by an actual Chinese expression that contrasts peace with chaos in this way. Better to be a dog in times of tranquility than a human in times of chaos. Wow. Looking at my dogs, I think the sentiment is appropriate. They may just be dogs, but they have a good life. They're loved and cared for. They have all the food they could ever need. They have treats, they have toys, they have playtime, they have sleep time. They even have their own room. They don't have any duties except to keep us company and give us cuddles and kisses. And even though they may think they have guard duty and are expected to protect the house, they don't really have that responsibility. They're well taken care of. Some would say too well taken care of. My dogs have it pretty good, friends. This past week, the reality of what they mean to me hit me on Tuesday when, just as I was getting ready to step into the shower, Kate had already left to go to the office, and I was getting ready to shower, and there was a ringing at the door, and it was the fire department telling me that I had to evacuate my house because the construction crews several houses down, they were building a house several houses down, had cut the main gas line. And you could hear it roaring outside. It was so loud. And we couldn't take the car, couldn't open the garage door for fear of sparks or the ignition of the engine. I just had to get dressed and go. Well, I got 4 dogs, 3 little ones and 1 old basset hound. How am I by myself without a vehicle going to be able to herd these insane puppies anywhere? It was frustrating. It was scary. I called Kate, got him to come back. Meanwhile, I'm throwing clothes on, and I'm trying to figure out, do I have to leave 1 or 2 behind? What do I do? Because they don't walk well on leashes. They tangle each other up. They get excited. They bark. They try to pull away. Well, we have a stroller, a puppy stroller, and so I put 2 of the smaller ones, Chase and Chloe, into the stroller and zipped it closed. It's on wheels. It rolls. And I took the 3rd, Calvin, I put him in a transport crate that I could carry and push. And then I leashed Fanny with her leash, because she will walk on the leash, my basset hound, 11-year-old basset hound. And so the 4 of us, 5 of us counting me, out the house, down the steps, out across the yard with the sound of the gas roaring down the street, trying to evacuate my house on a cold Tuesday morning. Was frightening indeed. But my dogs trusted me. Normally they'd be barking, they'd be pulling, they'd be fighting, they'd be trying to get out of the crate, trying to get out of the stroller. None of that. They were quiet. They didn't bark at the firemen. They didn't bark at the emergency crews. They were quiet. They stayed with me. They didn't struggle. They knew I was there for them and that I loved them. Being a dog in my house can be pretty sweet, friends. By comparison, the upside-down world that Jesus teaches and conveys to us today sounds both wild and at times very unrealistic. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you and revile you and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice on that day and leap for joy. For surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is how their ancestors treated the prophets. Jesus' teachings is often daunting to us. Indeed, we are tempted to cry out, but I don't want to be poor, but I don't want to be hungry, I don't want to be weeping, I don't want to be hated. I want to be rich and full and laughing and loved. If we're honest, that's what we want. The problem with being rich and full and laughing and loved is that in the real world, that status doesn't last forever. It's fleeting, it's a distraction, it's not real. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets. At first, what Jesus is describing in his sermon seems unrealistic. The poor aren't blessed, neither are the hungry, neither are the sad, neither are those who are hated. At least that's how the world sees it. That's how we're encouraged by the world to see it. But the true contrast is in the woes, which are unique to Luke's gospel. The woes contain the counterbalance to the blesseds, which help us to understand the contrast. If you are rich, well, you've already got it all. There's nothing more to be had. How often are the rich never satisfied with what they've got? Look at how greed governs so much of the time. Enough is never enough. If you're full, well, you'll be hungry at some point really soon. Just wait for a little bit and it'll happen. I ate too many enchiladas last night. They were leftovers from the pans that Cade made for me for Valentine's Day. I had a lot of them last night. I had too many of them last night, and I felt it all night long. Very full, too full. But even though I was too full then, and I'm not in the least bit hungry right now, I know I'll soon be, at some point later today, hungry again. And while happy at this moment in time, I know there will be times when I will be sad again. And if I'm praised in some of my remarks on this sermon or this article or that article, there will always be someone out there to criticize and hate me, if only for just being me. The truth in Jesus' teaching is deeper than the surface reality. Yes, there are blessings in difficult times. Yes, there are woes even in good times. That's reality. The upside-down world of Jesus' kingdom is the real world of God's grace. Jesus isn't calling us to be poor or hungry, weeping or hated. Jesus is calling us to trust in God, even despite the opposition that being true to the gospel will bring. We will be hated when we are inclusive and affirming. We will be hated when we call the rich and the powerful to accountability. We will be hated when we advocate for those who are pushed to the margin and excluded. The good news, the gospel, is that when this happens, and it will happen, we are not alone. We are blessed. But I don't want to be hated, Greg. Neither do I. It's not any fun. But I'd rather be hated by the powers that be, by the rulers and the authorities of this age, by the bigots and idiots, for being true to the gospel of God, true to God's love, true to the good news of Jesus, which calls us to love God and love neighbor, than to be loved for a lie. My personal experience confirms the truth of this. When I hid in the closet, denied to others and to myself the truth about myself, tried to live a lie, it was a lie. And I was miserable. I might have been superficially loved, but I wasn't trusted by the system. I wasn't understood. I wasn't accepted. They couldn't understand why I'd be single at 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. The lies and the half-truths and the suspicions and all the self-hatred that went with it simply wasn't worth it. It was the upside-down reality. It was the true upside-down reality that this world demands of us that was a lie. But the truth, where I can be open and true with you and happily married to the man that I love, that's not upside down. The world might think it is, but it's not. I'd rather have Jesus and the truth of his love than any of the accolades, the riches, the power that the world, that Christian nationalists think is so important. Coming to church this morning, Cade reminded me of a wonderful old gospel song written by Rhea Miller and George Beverly Shea that speaks to this truth and is rooted right here in our gospel reading from Luke. It's entitled, I'd Rather Have Jesus. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or land. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hand than to be a king of a vast domain and be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. I'd rather have Jesus than worldly applause. I'd rather be faithful to his dear cause. I'd rather have Jesus than worldwide fame. Yes, I'd rather be true to his holy name than to be the king of a vast domain and be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. That song, coming from the old, more conservative wing of Protestant Christianity, betrays the lie of Christian nationalism and is rooted in the truth of Jesus' blessings and woes. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revile you, defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice on that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is how their ancestors treated the prophets. That's where we are, my friends. God's blessings are true. Even when the times are interesting, like they are right now, let's live into this time. Let's lean into it strongly by faith and be the church of God, the church of Christ, the church of love, the church of faith, the church of hope, the church of grace that God calls us to be. And if the Christian nationalists hate us, well, that's what haters do. As the youth were saying 10 years ago, haters gonna hate. Let them. They can have the hate. We were called to love God and love neighbor, and lovers gonna love, friends. That's what we've got to do. Love God and love neighbor. And if they hate us for it, well, I'd rather have Jesus. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And may God's people say, in your presence,